So where are you getting your information? I'm not a climatologist. I wait for the climatologists to tell us what they're thinking.
Well, you want to respond to that, Bill?
Sure, yeah. UAH, RSS, had crude GIS data shows a 17-year flat trend, which suggests there may be something wrong with the CO2 warming theory.
Yeah. What is the reference? I don't...
Well, they're the main data sets that IPCC use. UAH, University of Alabama, Huntsville, GIS, Goddard Institute of Space Science, had CRUT, I don't know what that stands for, had CRUT, and RSS, Remote Sensing Something. So those data sets suggest a 17-year flat trend, which suggests there may be a problem with the CO2.
There may be a climate skeptic down in Huntsville, Alabama, who has taken the data and come to that conclusion. I say let's wait for the IPCC report to come out and see what the vast bulk of scientists who've been involved in gathering this information will tell us. I'm not, you know, we can cherry pick all kinds of stuff. Cherry pick, in fact, the scientists that we want to listen to. But let's listen to the IPCC.
This is David Suzuki, a self-proclaimed academic and CBC television host whom proponents of the theory of anthropogenic climate change put forward as an authority on their issue and advocate for population control, among other things. Despite, as already shown, he's profoundly ignorant of even the fundamental basics regarding how climate data is collected, and is completely incapable of defending his position to basic scrutiny. It should come as no surprise, then, to learn that he supports jailing skeptics of even the idea that climate change could be caused by humans.
David, you've urged at least twice that legal ways should be found to jail politicians for denying what you call the science of climate change. David, do you still hold that view?
You bet.
Basically, he's a poor man's Bill Nye, and you know it's bad when the figure you're second banana to in pushing state-approved pseudoscience is a children's entertainer who doesn't even actually have any degrees relating to any scientific fields of study. So why are we talking about this pathetic, gaping axe wound of a person today? Well, he decided to bite off way more than he could chew and gave an interview for a documentary entitled Surviving Progress about his opinion regarding economics. Oh my fucking god. If there was ever a time to store your memories directly out of your head onto a backup hard drive, this is it. Because what you are about to listen to is so fucking stupid that there is seriously a decent chance your brain is going to melt out of your ears. Just take it away, Suzuki, because I don't have any words.
What? 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 What?
The economists say if you clear-cut the forest, take the money and put it in the bank, you can make 6 or 7%. If you clear-cut the forest, put it into Malaysia or Papua New Guinea, you can make 30 or 40%.
That's actually not something that an economist would say, at least not an economist talking about economics, since all an economist or someone studying economics does is study markets and the behavior of human actors within them to try and better understand all of the various influences on production, consumption, distributions, etc. This is more along the lines of something that a shareholder for some logging company would say during a meeting with the higher-ups of the company in question, and even then they'd probably just be ignored, since the last thing any company that profits off of logging wants to do is get rid of the forests, because if there are no forests, they can no longer harvest lumber, and if they have no lumber, they can no longer sustain their business and would harm their own interests. In fact, out of the 2.3 billion trees planted annually, 1.9 billion of them are planted by private farmers and logging companies.
Money doesn't stand for anything.
Scarcity and utility, what are those? The floor is basic economics.
And money now grows faster than the real world.
What the fuck are you even talking about? The supply of money in circulation? The value of money? The economy expanding due to new innovations? Stop using fanciful tripe and actually start explaining things, you absolute fucking charlatan.
Conventional economics is a form of brain damage.
No, but based on some of the things that you've said so far, I think you may be experiencing some of the early symptoms of dementia, so you may want to get that checked out before you're so far gone that a reasonable case in court could be made against you being competent enough to tell people what you wanted done with your estate after you die. There are more than one school of economic thought, by the way. If we were talking about Keynesianism or neo-mercantilism, then I'd agree with you, but it's a ridiculous thing to say that economics in general is a form of brain damage. For the record, I don't consider Marxism to be an economic school of thought, but that's a topic which warrants its own video altogether.
Economics is so fundamentally disconnected from the real world. It is destructive.
Some schools might be, but no, literally the entire purpose of economics is to try and better understand what motivates people to associate with one another and how or why they choose to trade with what commodities under what circumstances they do. It is a science which exists to explain human behavior in regards to managing resources. Not only is it not disconnected from the real world, but it's probably one of the simpler studies of science to understand and create conclusions from, which is incredibly ironic given how heavily subjective marginal utility plays a role in formulations.
If you take an introductory course in economics, the professor in the first lecture will show a slide of the economy. And it looks very impressive, you know, raw materials, extraction, process, manufacture, wholesale, retail, with arrows going back and forth. And they try to impress you because they think, they know damn well, economics is not a science.
You serious?
Damn those pesky economists with all of these formulas which could be tested and repeatedly shown to be true or false, which would by definition make economics a science. They can't fool me. All these scientific theories and demonstrations of these theories put into practice are just trying to convince me that economics is a science, but I know better.
But they're trying to fool us into thinking that it's a real science. It's not. Economics is a set of values that they then try to use mathematical equations and all that stuff and pretend that it's a science.
You heard it here first, folks. They're using the scientific method. They're using the scientific method to demonstrate facts and axioms to be true or false in order to fool us into thinking that economics is a science. Wow, now this is some 9th season Rick and Morty shit right here. We gotta get on his level, guys. I mean, upon first glance, I know it looks like he explained how economics is a science, and from there is trying to argue that it isn't a science because he's a bumbling idiot, but trust me, underneath that turd-like exterior is a sublime intellect.
But if you ask the economist, in that equation, where do you put the ozone layer? Where do you put the deep underground aquifers of fossil water? Where do you put topsoil or biodiversity? Their answer is, oh, those are externalities. Well, then you might as well be on Mars. That economy is not based in anything like the real world.
Since an economist does not study the reasons for a preference, it's irrelevant whether or not an individual action is motivated by an externality. Arguing that economics isn't a science because economists don't specialize in climatology is like arguing that climatology isn't a science because climatologists may not be familiar with some concepts within the study of markets. But even with this aside, the argument for statism based on externalities is just plain ridiculous. It's not possible to make an interpersonal comparison of utility, or in other words, you cannot rationally calculate the utility gained or lost from negative externalities through government intervention. Therefore, it's not possible to create effective government policies based on the premise that it's better for the environment. And on top of this, I've pointed this out time and time again, how freer markets are better for the environment because, as noted earlier, and as you go on to note, private entities have a direct incentive to maintain the environment connected to their profits.
It's life, the web of life that filters water in the hydrologic cycle. It's microorganisms in the soil that create the soil that we can grow our food in. Nature performs all kinds of services. Insects fertilize all of the flowering plants. These services are vital to the health of the planet. Economists call these externalities. That's nuts.
Well, That was something, for sure. But I mean, what did you expect? The man can't even argue for the field he specializes in coherently. In conclusion, I'm glad this video was only 2 minutes long because, fuck my life, this was the most cancerous thing I've responded to so far. Anyway, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.